guys, welcome back to another video. Today's video is going to be about Fright Night. Yeah! Today, specifically, I'm going to be ranting about the character Ed Thompson, Ed Lee, or Ed Bates, because they change his last name in every movie he's in. Basically, we're talking about Evil Ed. So today's video is going to be a lax, ranty video, which I love to do. They're my favorite because I don't script anything and I just talk. I don't know how interesting it is to you guys, but I think it's pretty fun. So, let's rant, shall we? While I drink my coffee. Oh, good shit. Today, I'm going to be talking about Evil Ed and the mistreatment of Evil Ed. If you don't know, there are 4 Fright Night movies. I did a video a few months ago rating all 4 of them. There is the original from 1985, the sequel in 1988, the remake in 2011, and then a second remake in 2013. It says Fright Night 2 New Blood. It's not 2. It's a remake of the original movie, except they made it more Elizabeth Bathory. In every single one of these movies, except for the sequel, because it's an actual sequel, there's a character named Evil Ed. In the first movie, he's Ed Thompson. In the second movie, the remake in 2011, he's Ed Lee. And in the other remake from 2013, he's Ed Bates. I don't know why they changed his name 3 times, but they did. And in every single one of those movies, Ed gets the short stick. Every single time. In the first movie, he does not believe Charlie when he says that, Jerry's a vampire. Which is understandable, Who's going to believe someone who thinks their neighbor's a vampire? Then he gets chased down a dimly lit alley, goes down the alley, chased into a dead end, and Jerry finds him. Jerry's like, I can save you, you don't have to be bullied anymore. And he turns him into a vampire. Then, a short while later, he shows up at Peter Vincent's house, threatening him. Gets across to the face, and then runs off. Jumps out a window. Then, shortly thereafter, he's in Charlie's house, which why he was waiting in Charlie's house, I don't know. Peter Vincent goes there, like a scaredy cat, and finds out that the wire's been cut, so worries about Charlie's mom. But Charlie's mom works nights, so it doesn't matter. Gets there, Ed's in the bed, very creepy-like. They have a short fight, and he impales Ed on a stick. Ed, transforms from wolf to human, in a very cool puppet sequence, and dies. Or dies. The movie ends where you kind of suspect he didn't die. They also don't go over how his mom reacted to a puddle of blood if he wasn't there, or if he was there. Obviously, they didn't go into that. But let's just say he died. Alright, he was a vampire for less than a day. Probably a few hours, honestly. And then dies. In the remake from 2011, he's played by McLovin. Lovely. And, he's the one who believes in vampires, and Charlie doesn't. So they switch it. So instead of him not believing, he's the believer. And he's been stalking Jerry. Jerry finds out and turns Ed, saying, you were meant for this, in a pool. Which is kind of cool at the same time. Pretty sweet. We don't really see him until near the end when things start ramping up in excitement. And he gets his arm cut off. Chasing Charlie around, gets a few good hits in, but dies, nonetheless. Now, I don't know how many days pass before he, shows up again and dies. I'm gonna go, let's say, 3 days. So he survived a little longer. First movie, few hours. This movie, few days. I don't know the timeline, I'm guessing a few days. Then you have the second remake from 2013. Ed also doesn't believe Charlie when he's talking about vampires. Hot new professor who is a vampire woman who turns out to be Elizabeth Bathory, but whatever. While they're trying to escape her on a subway, he gets caught using a cross on his phone. Gets caught, bit, turned into a vampire. Right? Then later that night when Charlie goes to save Amy, who gets taken by Jerry for a ritual so she can walk in the sun. Very Elizabeth Bathory of them. They get in a fight, and he shoves holy water down Ed's throat, and his stomach pops. Well, explodes, but you know what I mean. And he dies. So, he never really makes it to being a vampire for very long. First movie, few hours. Second movie, maybe a few days. Third movie, few hours. Then went back to the, You get to be a vampire for a few hours, Ed, before you get murdered. Now, of course, Ed was evil. Evil Ed. Right? He was working for the bad guy. And it happens. But they could at least let him live a little longer or have him escape. In the first movie, the ending implies that he may have escaped. But they don't say, yes, he did. In the 2 remakes, he dies, either turning to dust or just, like, stomach exploding, just dead. So, like, what the fuck? And there's rumors that they may do another Fright Night. I don't think it's going to be a remake, though. I think it's probably going to be a sequel to the original. I hope it's not a remake. And if it is, I hope Evil Ed gets treated better, but Evil Ed hasn't really been treated very nice. I mean, before he was a vampire, he was called Evil Ed. He was made fun of. He was an unpopular kid. You know, he already had it tough, and he was bullied. They don't show it in the original, but he was bullied. Then he gets turned into a vampire, lasts like a few hours, and then gets murdered. God, I feel bad for Evil Ed. I mean, yes, he was a minion of the vampire, and he wasn't that great of a person, but, like, he could have, come on. Let him live a little longer, man. Come on. He just dies. So basically, this video is me ranting about Evil Ed and how they mistreat him. Because in every Fright Night that he's appeared in, which is 3, he dies quite quickly. Doesn't really get to be a vampire for very long, which is unfortunate. Like with Amy gets turned into a vampire, but when the vampire dies, she comes back. She's fine. Ed never makes it to that part. He always gets killed before being saved. All 3 times. Gets murdered before he has the chance of being saved. If only they could, like, tie him up or do something so he doesn't die, that would be cool. Just don't kill Ed. Either don't get him turned, or if he does get turned, don't kill him. Wait until the main vampire's dead and then be like, oh, look at that, you're saved. Or, what would be cool is if they left him as a vampire. So maybe the ending of the original Fright Night was Ed surviving, which I don't know how you survive that. And then, you know, the next movie could be Ed is the vampire. Maybe he gets killed then, maybe he doesn't, but at least he'd be a vampire for longer than 5 seconds. Just my opinion. Comment down below what you think. Many people have not seen Fright Night, so most of you might not know what I'm even talking about. But if you have seen Fright Night, or at least seen one of them, or all of them, comment down below what you think. If you agree with me that Ed deserves better, or if you think that it was justified to murk him a few hours after becoming a vampire. I get it, but also, like, come on. Ed deserves better, guys. In my opinion. Comment down below what you think. I'll be back again on Thursday with another True Crime Thursday, and Monday with whatever I decide to post. Alright, guys, I will see you later.